And good afternoon and good morning and good day to each and every one of you who are participating today, who are joining live or who will be joining later. And also a big welcome to all our non-physical friends who are also here. And for those that can feel them, feel that embrace, feel the safety, feel the safe circle, the safe space that we are creating in these meetings. So this is a monthly broadcast, Blueprints of the New, where we discuss and allow all of the different information, assistance, and also the main thing is to assist you with creating your own safe space, because it is more important than ever to be having this safe space within you, around you. And as it is within, so it is outside of you. That as you are feeling more safe within you, as you are creating those big safe spaces within you, so that you will find that regardless of what is happening to the mass consciousness, regardless of what is happening in the world, you can feel safe. So my name is Alexis Srsa, and I'm broadcasting from Far North Queensland in Australia. That's northeast coast of Australia. It is very green here. We've had a bit of rain, but we're going into our winter, which is a little bit like I'm living the tropics, so it's a little bit like a moderate summer. What we call winter, it's a moderate summer. Our town, of course, it's very quiet. It is actually a very enjoyable. I'm visiting all of the spaces that I haven't been going for a long time because there were big groups before, and now everywhere it's quiet. It is gorgeous. It is beautiful. And yes, just enjoying the town that I live in, the area that I live in, and also the people that surround me. And I hope that each and every one of you has found your own spaces, even within the limits of all of these lockdowns that we have, all this variety of situations that we have around the world at the moment, because you will find that as you are in touch with your own soul, with your own eternal self, the outer circumstances matter not, because within those spaces, everything serves you. All energy serves you. And I would also like to thank each and every one of you who always contribute with your donations to support this work. And it is needed more than ever, because there are many new ones who have never been even aware of what is going on, what we've been doing. And some of us have been around for a very long lifetimes in this lifetime, and yet for some others it is they're just starting to be aware that there is much more than what the mass consciousness would like you to believe. And also I would like to extend welcome to all of those that are, of course, for the first time. And to each and every one of you, discernment, developing and practicing your own discernment is even more important now than ever, because you will find that even in this show and in my work, you will find that perhaps some things are not for you, and that is absolutely okay, because there is such a variety of people listening. And those that have experienced the journey for a while, you know that each step, and it's not that the steps are the same for everyone, but each step, it requires a different thing. So what was right in the previous step is not right anymore, doesn't serve you anymore in the new step. So it's in the same way that perhaps what is suitable for someone who is new may not be suitable for someone who is well on this way. So practice that discernment. It is not personal. I don't get offended at all, because I know from my own journey, sometimes things resonate and then they don't. And it is so helpful to learn to be objective, and to learn to also be easygoing with all of these things. Because walking this path with your soul present, with your eternal self present, means that the things constantly change. So it is very helpful, and it is you cannot the human self needs to learn and to allow the change in the varying circumstances. And initially, that can be quite challenging to the human self, because of course the human self likes to go the same way, likes the habits, even though they may be damaging to itself, even though they may be painful and hurtful, but it finds safety in that. So with this transition of allowing the soul to be present, it is you change, you reorient yourself on the inside in a drastic way, because you find that all of those things that you found safety before, they either collapse by themselves, what seems like by themselves, or you willingly, when you learn, you willingly as a human self let them go and take on the new. And you will find that, of course, like I said before, that whenever there is something new, it comes with all new, it's a new ball game, comes with all the new rules, new things. And some of the things may even be in opposition, in seeming opposition to what you perhaps just believed just yesterday. But it is not that you're contradicting yourself. It is that you have changed the game within yourself. So within that new game that you have chosen, different rules apply. You see, so in this way, the truth, as we knew it in the old days, when there was supposed to be some kind of truth out there, and this truth needed to be defended, needed to be fought for, needed to be argued for, no longer exists, because it doesn't exist, this truth, because of course there are many truths with a plural. There are many points of view, there are many perspectives, and you will find that as you are changing, as you learn how to change, as you learn how to thrive on change, you actually look forward to, because you find how quickly things outgrow themselves in this new being and this new way that you are. You try something and you learn something and you play with it and you get engrossed in it and you enjoy and you experience, and then it is done. It comes to an end. So one of the things that is very, very helpful to let go of is the old way of relating to change. Because in the old days, what one had to do, or what one expected that had to be done, is when the change was coming up, you had to start all of a sudden. For example, let's say if you're in a relationship and you wanted out, but you didn't admit to yourself that you wanted out. Because of course in the old times, relationships were supposed to be forever. But when you are eternal, forever is a very, very long time. And when you realize how free you are in this way, and when you realize how the other person also is free, then you can handle change in a very, very different way. You can handle change by just realizing that the changes come. You acknowledge that perhaps you are bored with the situation. You acknowledge all these feelings, and then you don't have to start having a negative relationship to your current circumstances. You don't have to go into battles. You don't have to go into fights. You don't have to put the responsibility for this change, for the desire to change onto the other person. You can just simply acknowledge within yourself that, yes, I desire change. I desire something different. And then you take those steps that are necessary, you see, and you can love what you have created and what is just ending. You don't have to make a bad ending at all. So this is a very, very seamless and graceful way of change. Of course, there are challenges as in everything, because this life is made up of all of the things that will challenge you in a way that will ask you always to put more and more, to give 100% to life, to respond in all sorts of ways. But that this doesn't have, you don't have to have a negative, a dark, an angry relationship to change, you see. So everything that we do, when we change our relationship to it, it can become graceful event. It can become graceful and it can become easy. And it can also sometimes be stressful for a short while, and that's okay as well. The main thing is to not beat yourself up. You see, so in everything, and in everything we do, in everything we feel, we have created and we keep creating a more and more enjoyable, a more and more joyful, a more and more wonderful, magical way of being on the inside. And all of those, perhaps that's not the right word, all of those hard, harsh ways of being are gone. And why are they gone? Because each and every one of us no longer participate, because we have changed our relationship to ourselves. We no longer treat ourselves in a way, in a way that is hard, in a way that is harsh, in beating oneself up, and all sorts of things. You know, each and every one of you, you know how you treat yourself, how you speak with yourself. So all of these choices, big and little, and changes, are fill your day. You see, so all of these things happen within your life, within your everyday. It is not that you have to go anywhere, and yes, you can if you want to. It is not that you have to be in a certain particular way, and yes, you can if, with your preferences. You see, because you are within a story that you have created. Each and every one of us are living within the story that we have created. And with being the creator and with taking responsibility for our lives, that requires, yes, there are great benefits of taking responsibility, because then you can choose how your life is, how it unfolds. But to get to that space, of course, for those of you that have been traveling on this journey, you know so well what it takes. And that is why so few get to that space of allowing, of realizing their own creatorship, of realizing their own story, of realizing their own mastery. But more and more are choosing to go on this journey. And some of you, of course, are here. And for those, because I always forget to mention at the beginning, yes, please, there is a Q&A panel on the bottom of the screen. So if you are watching with Zoom, please type in some of your questions if you have any, and they will be answered at the end of this show. And also, just would like to welcome more people that have joined. I can feel you, and each and every one here can feel your energy. You are stepping into the new way of being. And how is it? What is it like to be allowing your soul, allowing your eternal self? For many times, you know, to the human self, it's not a welcome thing, especially initially. And also throughout the journey, because of course the presence of the soul, the presence of the eternal self stirs up all the time, stirs up things that you know, as a human self you didn't want to look at, stirs up anything that was buried. For the presence of eternal self is so fine, it is so delicate, and yet so eternally strong. It is full of seeming contradictions. So in this way, the human self changes enormously. with interacting with the soul, with interacting with eternal soul. An eternal self does not speak in language, in human language. It speaks in closer to what, let's say, nature speaks. If you are in the beautiful forest, you know how you feel, the aliveness, you feel everything talking with you, and yet they're not using any particular human language. But the communication is on so many different levels that you're constantly experiencing something new. And yet, the closer the eternal self steps to the human self, more gets stirred up because everything does have to change. For remember, the human self operated as if it was limited. Human self operated from habits. Human self operated, and for majority of people still does, operates from doing the same thing over and over again and hoping to find safety and hoping to find happiness and joy in all of those things that are promised from the outside. Of course, if you buy this product and that product, you will get that happiness, that elusive happiness, of course. That's what the ads say. And there's nothing wrong with products because once you step into the freedom, once you reorient yourself in a different way to everything, then everything is available to you. And in the same way, how people go about doing things, how people go about expressing their truth, whether they talk about, whether they find safety by communicating with their own self as angels, whether they communicate in whatever way, whatever word they use, a higher self, soul, mastery, master, it matters not. It matters what the feeling is, you see. So I invite you all to feel the energy that is being transmitted, that is being created with each and every one of us present today. And this is what happens. You become so aware of the energies around you. You become so aware of the energies inside of you. And as the soul comes close and as the dance continues, things come up, you release them. Sometimes can be painful, sometimes can be intensely challenging to release certain things. For remember, it is not only that they are coming from this life, but other lifetimes and ancestry and from all sorts of things. And yet when you're walking with your soul, when you're walking with your own eternal self, magic happens. Magic happens within your life, within your day, within your experience. And yes, you listen to things and you read and you go through stages where you just want to know more and more and more. And at the same time, you see, it's the presence of the soul itself that teaches you, that embraces you, that gives you all of those gifts and abilities that you didn't know you had. And yes, I speak with all of these different words. You see, as if there was a separation, but there isn't. I use all of these words for the presentations, and yet, let's say when I'm walking in a city or in town or in nature, I walk as one and I walk as many. Because when you're walking with the presence of your soul, so much becomes available to you. You're walking, and yet all of a sudden you become aware of all these different realities, and a different reality pops in, and you feel different feelings and experiences, and even sense that you have never even felt before, that there are no words for. And yet at the same time, it is not like that you escape your body, that you're not present, you're extremely present, and you feel with your senses, with your bodily senses. And the time changes. Time changes to accommodate all that you are and all that you are bringing in and allowing. So a lot of things happen. So when the mind tries to understand and how what this experience is for those that haven't experienced this yet, and of course from the beginning you can have glimpses of this, and it becomes more and more reality as you're dancing with your own soul self, as you're allowing more of your greater self to be present with you, the eternal self. And at the same time, even though it is all you, at the same time you are acutely aware of all these different parts. For this was the journey, the desire, the passion long ago of that one that was one, and went and allowed itself to be split into many, for it wanted to experience what it's like to have all these different points of views, to have all these different experiences, to have different truths. And so we are working out, you and I, we are working out how we can allow these different truths. So we have gone through the periods where we have tried to believe that there is only one truth because we remembered what it was like to be one. So we tried and we thought that what I believe is the one and only truth. And then I go out and try to make everyone else believe that. But that was not the goal, so to speak, of the one, the passion. The passion was for diversity. The passion was for many. The passion was to experience different truths, different points of view. And it is even more apparent now in this world of connectedness. How do you hold your truth amidst a sea of so many different truths? And yet there are truths that are of a higher vibration and some are of a lower vibration. There are preferences. And in this dance of your soul, you learn, you practice as a human self, you change, you allow. And this knowledge gets transmitted, gets imbued, becomes available to you. And you allow yourself to be this grand being that you are within your world, within the inside of you. And it becomes like as if you have all these different tentacles, not in a negative way, but it's a receptacles, like you're this big nerve center. And each and every nerve within you dances with the soul, learns, allows this greater and greater freedom. So you create within yourself spaces, huge spaces, vastness of spaces. And even in this, when you become aware of this as a human being within you, can be scary at first. You see, it's not like in one day all of this becomes true for you. It is a process, it is a journey, and this is the fun part. You see, the soul doesn't want to rush this. The soul wants to enjoy every part, every step of the way. It doesn't judge you for the mistakes, for there are no mistakes. And you as a human self too learn that there are no mistakes. What a joy it is to really realize, what exhilarating freedom it is to realize that you don't have to beat yourself up when mistakes happen. What you thought as a human self was a mistake and you used to beat yourself up. What a joy it is when you don't have to do this anymore. When you can allow yourself to play, then all becomes a play and not that serious thing where you have to beat yourself up, where you have to discipline yourself. You see, you become a person that doesn't have to force yourself to do anything anymore, because you reorient yourself and you start working from your passion, from your creativity, from your joy of life, and you make choices out of that. And initially, of course, those choices raise up a lot of fear because you go against your teachings as a human being. You go against the teaching of society, of your parents, of traditions, of culture. You are often the first person within your circle of people that you live in to actually experience this, because this is the way of the pioneer. This is the way of the first one. Perhaps there is no one within your circle at the moment that you can confide with, and yet you will find that you will find all that you need. You will be guided to, and it matters not. You see, none of these, so many things start not to matter anymore. It becomes just a play. Is it that you found someone because you followed something you read in a book, something that you saw on a computer, something that you perhaps inspired you in a movie? You see, this matters not how. It matters that you listen. It matters that you recognize. It matters that you take that step. So you see, when in this dance of your soul, it always asks you, it always asks 100% of you, for its joy is for you to be naked in this way, in it, your relationship to it. So as you are allowing, as you are releasing, as you are clearing, as everything that was stopping you from being all that you are, from allowing your grandest, the words again, there is no grander part. I'm just trying to express all those huge realities that the soul brings with you, but it is not as, there is no hierarchy as in that the human self is lower. No, it is just that the realities that it brings with it are huge, vast, eternal, and you cannot define eternity. So when the human self changes in this relationship, it's like when you meet someone you love, out of love. If you spend years with them, you change, they change you. And often you say, well, this person I loved, and they change me for the better. And even this word, in relationship with your soul, is a very odd one to use, because it doesn't see you from 10 years ago as worser and now as a better. But from the human self perspective, you see, there are these kind of choices that you can make. And as you're making this space, as this space is created within you, and you wonder as a human self, where do I get this knowledge? How do I know all of this? You see, you don't have to know. It is the presence of your own soul that brings all these abilities. You but only allow them to become part of you. You take ownership of them. For without making that choice and taking ownership within yourself, it doesn't become your reality, you see. All of your friends, it can become reality. But being a creator, but it doesn't for you unless you take ownership of it, of that particular way of being, of that particular feeling, of that particular story. You see, and this is the thing with being a creator of your own reality. Unless you allow it, unless you own it, unless you release it, it doesn't happen for you. For this is an individual journey. And at times for human self, it would be much more easier, much more comfortable if someone else could do it for you. And yet ultimately, there is nothing more joyful, there is nothing more satisfying than this sovereignty, than the freedom, than the spaces that you create, the real changes within you of the patterns that you thought, that you fought against, that you thought you weren't able to change, that you fought against all your life. Perhaps these patterns were part of your family, and all the other members were fighting against this, trying to change. And yet it is with the presence of the soul that finally that change happens. And it is in those times, in those spaces, which are very private, you may not even talk about them to anybody else. You may not even write about them. But you know the courage that it takes when you are walking through the most fearful things that you thought were fearful within yourself. And yet this is exactly what you can do. And this is exactly this hero's journey. Walking through these ancient fears, ancient patterns, ancient dependence of the group consciousness. And how do you know when you are within the group? How do you know when you are still bound by the mass consciousness, when you are still bound, engrossed in the human story, in the stories, in the dramas of everyone else around you? It is a play of energy, and you will find it especially in your solar plexus area. You can feel it, you can feel those chords. You can feel the energy stuck and it pulls you in. The stories that other people, the drama that other people play can pull you in and you ride back into it. And if that happens, allow it, notice it, and then step out of it. Even that you learn how to do. You see, you do it once, and then next time it becomes easier. And then you have a choice, and this is the crux of the matter, is to have the choice. You see, when you have this overview that your soul brings, you have a chance, you have that time, you have space where you watch all of the different parts, all of your different facets and aspects, and all sorts of things arise. And you can tell you start being able to discern what is yours, what is not. And you have a choice of what you want to participate in and what you want to step out. And when you step out, you will see that those that try to pull you in will find someone else to play that game, unless they too, of course, are willing to step out. And yet you are not responsible for their choices. And this is another great freedom. Because for some, especially those that have been light workers forever and ever, carry responsibility for the world on your shoulders. You have taken upon yourself responsibility for what humanity does or doesn't do. And you despaired, and you tried to pour your light and do all of the things that you could, and yet still there was not a change. You see, because it is being an enabler in many ways. It is good to be a light worker because you start learning how to work with the grids, how to work with light, how to work with energy. And yet there comes a time when you have to step out of that role also. Because you realize that each and every one of those human beings that you tried to help is a souled being also. They too are a creator, they too have a right to play in whatever game they want to play. You see, for you just being here on earth, you have created, each and every one of you, enough light to be for others, to be able to see for others, to be able to make the different choices from what they have done. And yet if they choose to go a different path, it is their right. It is within their realm of their own responsibility to do that. And you will find that, yes, you may be feeling all sorts of guilt and shame and all sorts of things that come up for you. And you allow them and you feel them and you let them go. You don't indulge those feelings anymore, the emotions, and yet they have to be felt. For them to go into neutral, they have to be felt. And once you have resolved your own feelings of that, you will know that you can always feel the guilt, but you will know that it's no longer yours, but it's of mass consciousness. You see, you become discerning of this. And there is no one single way to explain this, and you become so acutely aware of how and where different people are at, and a different advice that perhaps initially out of context can look contradictory. And yet when you see the person that you are just talking to, it starts making sense, you see, because there is no book that can tell you what your journey is, what the other person's journey is. You see, they too have realization, have enlightenment, but perhaps it is not in this lifetime. But when you can have an overview and you can see from your own soul's perspective, they all too are experiencing realization now. Because from the soul's perspective, all of the lifetimes are now. What is, how long is one lifetime? Within the context of eternity, you see, the conundrums. And yet they are not, because with all of these new abilities that you get, the understandings, the experiences within yourself, you can handle all of these things. They make sense. You see, as you start realizing all of the different viewpoints, you also at the same time have the ability to see them, to perceive them, to allow them, to recognize them. You see, and this is what comes with maturity, spiritual maturity, with allowing, with being, with honoring yourself. For when people sometimes, perhaps through drugs, through all sorts of different things, try to experience this kind of realities too soon, they step into something for which they have no abilities. They haven't developed the muscle, so to speak, to be able to deal with that. And that is why it can create havoc, it can drive them crazy. And yet when you have worked, when you become spiritually mature, you are able to handle, you have all of the tools, you have developed all of the tools to be able to meet each and every thing, each and every new thing that comes into your perception. See? So you get, when you're dealing with your soul, you get a whole package. The packets that you get contain everything. They contain the story, they contain the challenges, they contain all of the solutions and resolutions, and then they contain an ending where you can then move on. So this way, a new way of being, it is a very different kind of being, and you cannot tell from looking for, you can tell when you feel, when someone is in this space, but there isn't like a pre-prescribed, you see, like what the mass consciousness would like to say, only this person, this type of person can be successful, only this type of person can be happy. And you're then trying to become that type of person, whether through operations or whether through whatever. You see, but when you are with your soul, you are absolutely perfect. Your life, your story is absolutely perfect for you. And within that story, there are all the tools, all the solutions, all of the things that you need. You do not need anything else. Yes, you can travel to the other side of the world, but you don't need to, because it is just right where you are right now that you have everything that you need to have this communion, to have this allowance of your soul, regardless of your age, regardless of your gender, regardless of your color, regardless of your nation, regardless of your culture. None of these things matter not, except for when you play within them. You see, so when you are in your relationship with your own soul, a completely different set of values creates itself within you. What matters not. All of these things. And the best thing about it is that it is you who chooses what is important to you. And there are so many things that you haven't even known what are important because you were confused as a human being, bombarded with so many different things. And this is what the young people of today are saying, how they are bombarded with so many things, how they don't know what's what, and yet when you are in touch with your own soul, you absolutely know. You see, everything is known, and you have the ability to know what is real, what is not real, what matters to you, what doesn't matter to you. And that is such a joy to realize that you can allow yourself, that you can like what you like, that you can let go of what hurts your heart. There is such a joy on that day when it really hits you. You see, on this journey, you have so many of those special hours, so many of those special days, so many of those special weeks and months, when you are realizing these kind of precious things that are priceless, absolutely priceless, because they are your freedom, they are your sovereignty, they are allowing of your own self. And an even better thing in a relationship with your own soul is that as a human self, you don't have to worry. Things just develop, happen in your life. And all of a sudden you realize just how perfect they are for you, just how perfect what happens. And you see, if you were to try to control them from your human self, you wouldn't be able to create them in such perfection because there are so many parts, there's so many rooms to the house that you are, that you as a human self have not even been yet. And this is also an adventure because it doesn't matter how far, how many rooms within yourself you have visited. The house just keeps growing. The garden within you just keeps growing and expanding. You think you come to the edge, you come to the fence of your garden in one day, and then the next day you realize there's more. You see, it never ends. And to deal with these things, this way of being, this new reality, you allow yourself to be changeable, to be malleable. So you can keep changing, keep allowing all these different realities to be part of you, to feel them, to not be stuck in the same old rut, you see. Because if you are stuck in the same old rut, there is no way you can experience, and that's what you will be experiencing. The same old rut over and over and over. The same story over and over and over. And the stories, you will find that even the stories, from the soul's perspective, have a different conclusion, you see. So it is not that from a human perspective, you feel as if the story needs a beginning, middle, and end. But this is not how the soul sees it. This is not how the human who has allowed the soul sees it anymore. The story doesn't need an ending, a resolution. Very often, the resolution to a story, to a particular story, is just stepping out of it, you see. You're not bound by anything. You're not bound to be having to be like an Indiana Jones, forever searching for little clues and treasures within that. You can. This is the story you can create. And it's not like that you come to an ending or you found some kind of big treasure, or you have to forever search until you find that big treasure. You are the treasure. When the story ends from the soul's perspective, exactly when you've decided you don't want to play it anymore, you see. So to do with your past, to do with your history of this human life, that story ends not because you've resolved all the past issues, because you've resolved and answered and found and all of the issues. No, It ends when you choose, I want a new story. And then you step into that story, you allow it, you allow for a different story to come. So when you allow this awareness of this amazing freedom, that you can step willingly, freely into different stories without having to resolve something that doesn't have resolution, you see, for you are the creator. It is not like there are some rules and some things. Okay, if you go around this block a few times, if you go around down this road a few times, this will happen and that will happen, and you will find all these different things. You see, none of these kind of rules apply to you anymore when you allow the soul self to be with you. Yes, and some things are much more intense. The intensity of integrations, the intensity when you can no longer close your eyes to what you have hidden, when you look at all of the shadowy parts and allow all of the shadowy parts and stop projecting them out into the world, out into the other people, when you stop battling those parts of yourself, wrestling with those parts of yourself that you don't want to see. And even here, especially here, you have the assistance of your soul, because it is the soul that knows how to resolve those parts for this, and they are the parts of the soul, just like you are. All these parts that you didn't want to see, the intensities of feelings, the intensities of rage, of anger, of fear, all of this can be felt, and it's not comfortable always. And yet, when you feel them, the intensities of betrayals, the intensities of hurts, because you can remember, you will know that you become very aware, acutely aware, and you remember how you felt when you were a baby, how you felt when you were a child, a teenager, and all of the different stages. And you acutely can feel all of those feelings of power, powerlessness, being overpowered, being powerless. All of these feelings that you didn't want to feel, that you didn't want to acknowledge, they come up. And yet, with the presence of your soul, you can just allow them to flow through. It happens very quickly. It is in the battle, it is in the wrestling that the suffering lies. But when you're trying to push these feelings and experiences away, and initially, for example, let's say if you're allowing the anger, initially it feels so intense. It feels like it's going to overtake you. It feels like you may even hurt someone, or who knows what you might do when you lose that control. That's how it feels. And yet with your presence of your soul, you will find that you will safely find ways, miraculous ways even, to release that. And after the initial intensities, because of course, first what comes up is all of those years and years and lifetimes of having it bottled up. Once that intensity passes through you, once you allow it and the energy goes into neutral, then of course what you're left with is the updated anger. And what I mean by that is that you can be in present time. So you're no longer feeling the past. You're no longer feeling your reactions that you have stored. You see, for everything that you have experienced is stored within you. Everything that you have ever experienced, even before when you didn't have words as a baby, before when you were in a womb, all of these things are stored until you release them. And there is a great joy in releasing, and there is a great compassion. There are no words for all of the different things that you experience when you are going through this. And you can no longer then say things like, okay, this was a bad day, this was a good day. For you cannot, because within each and every day, you experience many things. You can experience this great anger that you have stored forever and ever. and all that comes with it. For all of these energies that you've stored will bring pictures and memories and scents with it. And yet they flow through you very quickly if you don't identify with them, if you don't allow them to get stuck within you, if you don't stop them from that flow when they go into neutral. And they don't. When you're with the presence of your soul, they don't leave any mark on you, they just release. You can often have an extremely intense release session, and yet straight away you can get up and start laughing. And you go out in your garden and you enjoy the beauty. It doesn't leave any lasting. You see, it doesn't touch, doesn't break your heart anymore. With the presence of your soul, it's like you're well oiled on the inside, so everything just brushes through you, brushes past you, and on it goes. It doesn't get stuck. It doesn't hurt anymore. Once it's released, it's gone. You can get up and go. And yes, at other times you feel like a truck has hit you, and the body can feel it. And then you just rest. And even in those times, you see, because you are never alone, even in those times, you can have beautiful experiences. You can have all sorts of experiences and feelings that you have never experienced before. So this way of being, we use many words to describe, and I could talk on forever and ever and ever. Because there is so no end of all of the different experiences, all of the different abilities, feelings, emotions, sense that you experience, and the joy of life that is real, because it is based on you, because the things that you are now creating in partnership with your soul self, in partnership with your eternal self, it is just so much you that you haven't, as a human self, didn't even know how much you it is. You just sometimes stop and are amazed. Wow, this is so me. I wouldn't know how to create this from my own human self perspective. And yet it is so much me, because this part that is the soul self knows me so intimately, so in depth, especially as I allow myself, as I've created within myself this safe space, and I allow myself to be vulnerable, to be naked in front of my soul. Because the soul, there is no bigger ecstasy than to experience this. There is no bigger joy in so many different ways to experience this, to not have to hide anymore. Because the soul accepts each and every part of you, the shadow part, all of the parts that you didn't want. There is nothing that you can bring up to say, okay, look, I've done this, I feel guilty about that, I felt this, that the soul wouldn't accept without any conditions. And so you too, as a human, can start accepting. And the judgment goes out of the window. And your discernment becomes incredibly acute. Because there is a huge difference between judgment and discernment. And there are theories about it, but I invite you to experience this for yourself. Experience all this. Because you will find that each and every word that you're known, and you can open in thesaurus, each and every word will start meaning something different to you than what it has in the past. You see, because it becomes yours, you own it, and you decide what it means, how it feels, and you decide. And there is no greater pleasure than this. And sometimes, what does it feel like? You can be for a walk, and all of a sudden, you are visited, you are allowing your eternal self. And you feel like this great gardener who has planted big garden which is called Earth, who has been present, and you feel the grandness, the majesty, the king and the queen, the eternal self, who has been present, who has created, part of being creating this world, Earth, universe. Now within it, in your body, looking through your eyes, surveying, enjoying the Garden of Eden, that now God, that is you, is walking. Spirit in matter, it is who you are. And the feelings and the emotions and the experiences, the sensory experiences that go with that, I invite you to experience them for yourself. Okay, so let's see if we have some questions. All right. Oh, yeah, we've got 2 questions. Oh. Okay, what can I do to be free from the laws of society? Yes, absolutely. Now, this journey, this is one of the things that you actually intensely work on this journey. It is the laws of society, because just like with every word that you know, you reorient yourself. You create a new relationship. You get to decide what it means to you, and it is not from you. It's not because you do that from your own limited past human self. It is with the presence of your soul. It is from a greater perspective. It is from the perspective of the unconditional acceptance and love that you imbue each and every word with that, with a new understanding, with a new value system. And so in the same way, it happens with all of the laws and all of the things that of the society that you live in. So one of the things that you will find, that you will start seeing all of the limitations, and at times when you first notice it, it can almost feel unbearable. And when you keep waking up, when you see how barbaric the society is, and when you see how barbaric the value systems that we have been raised with, you know, all of the things that we think it's fun to do, when you see that is actually how barbaric so many things are, that can actually be quite shocking to realize. So you go through all of these different stages. You go through all of these things, and initially, as I said, it can feel almost unbearable, because you realize just how enchained you are, how limited you are, how tied down to all of these obligations and to all of these kindnesses. So including the kindness can be a big, big chain, because when you start realizing that what is often taught as kindness is but energy feeding. You see, so you go through this huge, huge reorienting, and then you start realizing that because you live within a society, there are some, so to speak, rules that make sense. For example, you know, you need some traffic rules. You need certain rules for society to work. And you become, you see, you initially, you are a big rebel. You try to rebel against those, and then you realize rebelling doesn't work. With the presence of your soul, you change your relationship with all of the rules. You reorient, you find out what is true for you, you find out what is not true for you. So initially you realize there are so many rules that you have taken on, that you enforce yourself. When no one is looking, you follow those rules. So you start to let go of those little rules, and you start to, and as you're letting go of those things that are unnecessary, you declutter your life. And that can be represented, for example, for someone like, let's say you had a big house with a lot of things in them, and then you realize that the rule says your house has to be, of course, clean, and also you like your house to be clean because it reflects your well-being when you have your house clean. And then you realize that so many things within that house are completely unnecessary. Perhaps the old rule said, well, you have to keep certain things because they were given to you by your great grandparents and all of these things. And then you realize, no, perhaps if they are just collecting dust and you never use them, all you have to do is keep dusting them. You let them go, you see. And perhaps, yes, some family members may be upset with that. You see, so then you deal with that and you declutter, and you realize all of a sudden, by doing all those little things, by letting go of all of these little things that you thought you never questioned that you had to do them, that you had to perform them, all of a sudden you start freeing your life. And then comes a huge one, is when you realize that all of those rules and all of the things and all of the involvements you had with people those close to you and friends, family members, and I'm talking, adult people. I'm not talking, it's a different situation in relationship with your baby, for example, for those that have little children. But you find out that when people are adult, you see, if you play the role and if you do things for them, they don't have to do them. You'll keep doing them, and you will keep using your energy, and will keep using your time, and it will keep creating resentment and anger within you, because somewhere deep down inside of you, you know that is not right. You see, so you realize as you keep traveling on this journey, more and more you realize and more you see. So then the next day you see another thing, you think, wow, look, I'm doing this for this person and they are more than capable of doing themselves. I would rather spend this time going for a walk, taking some time off for myself. And so then you make a stand. And this is where you can go into, arguments and challenges as to how you redefine your boundaries, redefine your borders, redefine your responsibilities. You see, so this is what happens each and every day. And as you are initially starting to change things, it can be a little bit stressful, and yet you find it within you this new strength, this new determination that you are no longer going to put up with things, doing things that are not yours. So you see, so as you are freeing yourself in this way, not only that, but with the presence of your soul, you somehow are able to stretch time, and you find time, and all of a sudden, as you're changing your life in this way, from the small to the big, you find all of a sudden that you don't feel so constricted anymore, because you act upon what you see, and you don't fall anymore for the manipulation of others, and you give back onto their shoulders what is their responsibility. So a lot of the initial time is actually, and throughout the time, is to be redefining your own borders, to be redefining boundaries, to be redefining responsibilities. So as you're doing this in your own personal ways, you realize that there are so many things that you were doing that you don't have to, that society says you should, that you don't have to anymore. And then you just stop doing them, and more, and so in this way your day becomes more and more reflecting of who you are. And while you're doing this, you are dealing with all of the things inside of you, the voices, the sound inside of you, the guilt, the shame, all of the things, the parts that are saying no. You see, every time when you want to change something, you will hear from those parts that don't want you to change. So for you, it is up to you then to say no to those parts, to say, no, I'm not going to listen to you anymore. I will do it in a different way. And as you are experiencing and practicing this, you get better at it. And you become more discerning, and you become more acutely aware. And as you become aware of a new thing that is limiting you, then you deal with that. And then comes the fear, and you breathe through the fear. And then you keep stepping, and you keep doing, and you keep taking those steps, and you keep acting on things, on your own inner impulses. And you will find, if you haven't already, that you will find people to support you. You'll find new friends that are also in this place where you are. Whether it's online, whether it's in person, it matters not. You see, so the more you are doing this, the less you will feel constricted. And then you will become to a place where you will see that, yes, some of the rules of the societies are pretty good because you have created so much freedom within your day, within your life. And then you stop becoming a rebel because you realize you don't have to rebel anymore against anyone or anything. You see, because it is those voices that are constricting you, those patterns that are constricting you are actually on the inside. And the great thing about it is that you don't have to start with the huge things. Start with little things, whatever that means. You see, even huge and little means different things to different people. So start with small things. Notice what you don't want to do anymore in your life. How can you simplify? How can you release time? Because it is this that is at the crux of this thing of feeling suppressed by the rules, is of not doing what your heart tells you to do. So I invite you, do those little steps that will lead to the big steps. And have the courage, use your courage, use the support of all of the non-physical friends that you have, use the support of your soul to take those steps that are necessary. And the more you do, the easier it becomes. And the more you practice, the bigger steps you can take. You see, because this is the new life. Because you will find that even as you're walking this path with your soul, as you're traveling this adventure of life, it will always be that stepping into the unknown, because the soul self always asks you to do that over and over again. And it is through those, but it always asks you, yes, it always asks you to step into the unknown beyond your comfortable zones, because that's how you grow, that's how you expand. And yet at the same time, it offers full support, the abilities to handle the new. You see, you are not alone. And it offers guidance with each and every step, because what happens is, as you step into that unknown that you've never done before, all of a sudden you realize the landscape into that unknown, and you get familiar with that new landscape. And it's then that you are asked to do the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step, you see. So it is not stressful in any way. And all of a sudden you look back, a couple of years pass, and you think, wow, look at how different my life is. And all I needed to do was take those what seemed like little steps. And yet it is those little steps that are steps to freedom. And they will always, as you grow, as you expand, what now to you looks like a huge step, but when you're ready, when the soul asks you to take that step, you will see that you have traveled so far that even what looks like a big step now, when that comes, it will only be a little step again. And that's the joy, and that's the wonderful thing of traveling with your own soul self. Freedom in all sorts of ways. Thank you, dear one. Okay, so we've got a big question. All right, we've got a big question now. The homes in my neighborhood have been transferred to new management. However, there is no phone number or address given to us to discuss the rent and upcoming lease agreement. One man who lives here is now the sole manager of 38 homes. Okay, so, but he has no authority. Okay, it's a big story. Okay, all right. So, if you can try to, condense the question, because we have quite a few people watching. So the gist of the story that I see in there is whether to stay, how to approach this thing, whether to move. So I don't give direct this kind of things, go or move or stay. You see, because these are things that you are stepping into a place where you choose what to do. So I cannot tell you what is better for you, because this is what we are stepping out of. Should you move? Should you stay? Should you talk to this person? What I'm asking you, what I suggest, what I'm suggesting and inviting you to do is to step into your own knowingness, and then follow that next step and the next step. You see, because you cannot make any mistakes, whichever way you choose. You cannot make mistakes in this new way, because you will find, as you are walking this journey, you will find that whichever choice you make, it will be the best choice. You see, it's like, let's say, if you were to move to a place of a forest, or whether you were to move to a place of a city, or whether you were to move to a place of a beach. In the old days, you will ask, okay, where will I find my joy? Where will I find that grail that I'm looking for? Is it going to be at the beach? Is it going to be in a forest or in a city? But now you realize that that grail is in each and every location. So whatever you choose, the energies will serve you if you allow them to serve you. You see, so all of this, how things will work out, the way out of the stress is to build that trust within yourself. So all of these things that are stressful for many people at the moment, with paying the rent, paying the mortgages, many people have lost jobs, all of sorts of these things. But you're asked to create that safe space within you, to create the space of abundance within you. And then all of those parts, the aspects that are being so stirred up at the moment, cannot have an effect on you, because within your safe space, they have no power. But if you give them power, if you listen to their voices, they will keep having power within your world. So whether you stay, whether you talk to the person, whether you move, if you allow energies to serve you, they will serve you in each and every choice that you make. But you can make any choice. And if you don't allow energies to serve you, if you don't create that safe space within you, then neither of those choices, none of those choices will give you peace, you see. So it all depends on your own inner world. It all depends on how you are with you, how much you allow. You see, this story of stress, it is very real, because being embodied means that you deal with all of these things, and you deal with them very effectively, with rents, with bills. You see, we're not talking about spirituality that is escapism. We're talking about embodied spirit in matter. Spirit in matter deals with all the issues of people, with all the issues, with everything that has to do with physical reality. with things that break, with renovations, with paying bills. But the difference is the quality of your relationship with your world. You see, when you are, especially when you are changing, every time when you are changing drastically, changing the way you relate with your world, you will find that some people will act, other people will take on the role of your aspects that are stirred up, that are saying no, that are trying to scare you back into your old role. And those people can be the bosses, they can be the owners, they can be the banks, the mortgages, the mortgage holders. They are playing parts of your aspects that are being woken up, they're being stirred up when you are making choices for your freedom. And for each and every one of us that goes through this, there comes a time when we have to deal with the survival issue, because the survival issue is so huge, and it is these survival fears and the survival issues that are keeping so many imprisoned. It is one of the biggest jail guards, the gatekeepers. So I invite you, with all the support that you have, with all the things that you're engaging with, to breathe through this, to breathe through the fears, to breathe through survival fears. And you will know in that space that you create, in that safe space, and use whatever you need, whether you listen to music, whether you listen to recordings, whether you listen to shows or read, but breathe through it. Take deep breaths through all of these fears, through all of this stress. It is only the aspects that are being aroused, that are being so loud, of survival, of being able to make the ends meet, of being able to pay the bills. And yet the only way through this is to allow it. Even to allow what would be the worst thing that could happen. So when you allow it within yourself, all of a sudden you realize it was just but an empty story, a story of fear that was keeping you imprisoned. And it may take few times for you to allow the worst scenario to play out within your heart, within your mind. Allow it. You see, and then you allow the energies to move again through you. And once the energies move, it means you are allowing the greater presence of your own soul. And with the greater presence of your own soul, the image, the sound, the scent of freedom, the scent of the next step will become apparent to you. And then you will have the courage to take that step. You see, and that is why I cannot tell you what to choose, because it is within you. So all of the issues, all of the challenges within your life also have all of the keys and all of the solutions to resolve themselves. And this is the thing that we spoke about, that I spoke about just a bit earlier, is that as a creator, as one that takes responsibility of your own life, it would sometimes be easier to find solutions if someone else had those keys, because we trust, as human beings, we were taught to trust the authority on the outside. And yet you see, I am not the authority of your life. You are. You are the chooser. You are your own creator. You are your own allower. You create your own life. You can choose your own path. And only you, but that also means that it is only you who can breathe through all of the bondages on the inside, all of the walls that are on the inside, that are stopping you from flow, from movement, from the presence, from the greater presence of your own soul. And yet at the same time, I would like to congratulate you, because the issues that you are facing, you would have not you not taken these steps to freedom. And you know how much courage it takes. Because people around you, perhaps your family, those ones that up to now you have valued their opinion, they can no longer advise you. You see, because this journey of the soul, this journey of the integration, it's a new ground for so many, and you are the pioneer within, amongst your own group of people. You are the one that are doing this first, amongst your friends, amongst your family. And you have this courage and determination to follow it through. So I congratulate you, dear one. Thank you. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions. Oh, we've got more questions. Okay, dear Alex and friends, I got the time wrong and joined too late, so I pose no question today. I just want to greet all and say how wonderful it is to walk this way with all of you together. Blessings, and blessings to you, dear brother. What great strides, what great journey you are on, what great things you are allowing and experiencing, and what a joy and honor it is to play with you in this way. Thank you. Your previous attendee discussions and comments helped me resolve these dynamics. Thank you. And thank you, dear sister. You are well on your way. You are the courageous one. You are the one who is breaking free, who is breaking through all of the barriers within your circle of friends. And you are a standard and you are a teacher for all of those around you. As each and every one of us are allowing this new way of being on this earth. And thank you to each and every one of you. And I will post the video on very soon. So for those of you who have not watched the beginning, it will be available for you a couple of hours. Just check out my website, or actually there will be a recording also on the Facebook that you can watch. And thank you each and every one of you for joining. There is more and more things to come. I'm just I'm in the process of expanding my website. So it is time to do big changes there. It's not that the website itself will look very different, but it is all of the background capabilities, and which will allow me to do many more programs, and also create a private space that you can log in. There will be a small monthly contribution that will allow you then to go into that safe space, and there will be lots of things in there. And I thank each and every one of you. It is such an honor to play with you, to travel with you through this most amazing times. Thank you.